What's up, you guys? Today is the first impressions ride of the 2024 Wired Freedom Plus with dual batteries. I'm going to be comparing this bike to the older 2024 Wired Freedom with a single battery and also checking to see if there's any wobble. To address this issue, Wired has installed from the factory a Visco Hellbender headset that is basically a steering stabilizer that keeps the handlebars from wobbling while riding, even if your hands are taken off of the handlebars, supposedly. So we're going to take that out, try it, and see what happens if I ride without any hands, and also if I hit the handlebars, is there a wobble that continues or is there not? So stay tuned and come along, let's check it out. And there it is, dual batteries and ready to go. Okay, so the first issue I noticed as soon as I hopped on the bike to kind of drive it out of my neighborhood was that the shock here in the back does not have enough air from the factory for my weight. It might be set up for a 150, 160 pound rider, but I'm over 200 pounds, pretty well over it. Actually, I'm around 240, almost 250 pounds at this point. So what I had to do in order to ride this right now without going and getting my high pressure pump and setting it all up, which I want to make a video for to show people how to do that. I made one before on the previous model, but I'd like to make a new one again to kind of show you how to set this pump up. You have to take this cap off here and you have to use a high pressure, this cap right here, and you have to use a high pressure pump in order to fill this up. And so what I decided to do was just lock that out so that it doesn't go down, because otherwise it was bottoming it out and I don't want to ruin the shock. So I have that locked just for this particular video. And the other thing I noticed was that as I was riding, I don't have the batteries completely fully charged because I had them stored for a while before I could make these videos, but I'm not getting full power yet. So I need to go into the settings and adjust it to get maximum power. I'll probably be making a video about how to set up this new display for the new bike as well. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to be doing a top speed test. I'll be doing long distance range tests for best case scenario and worst case scenario with the two batteries. But for now, I want to just take the bike out, get an initial ride quality test, and also I want to see if the handlebars wobble. I want to see if that issue has been fixed by this Visco Hellbender steering stabilizer that was installed by Wired. I did not have to install that after I purchased it. I think now going forward all of the bikes will be shipped with that. So I want to see, is it removing the wobble? And it does feel a little bit stiffer up front, which is kind of nice. It's not so stiff that I can't turn it with one hand, but it does feel a little more smooth and tight, I guess you could say. So I'm going to take this out, just do a couple quick rides and see what I think of the ride quality and also if there's any wobble in the handlebars. Okay, so the first test is going to be an initial ride quality test. Overall, it feels very similar to the original 2024 Wired Freedom with the single battery. Nice and smooth. With the big fat tires, it eats up a lot of the bumps. I do have my rear shock locked out at this moment, so it's not giving me the full ride quality test, but I will be setting that up later. It does seem to be really smooth, no issues. The brakes are nice and solid and quiet. Now, what I want to test is, am I going to get any wobble out of these handlebars? Okay, so I'm going to get up to speed here, up to about 12 or 13 miles an hour. And I'm going to take my hands off the handlebars. Obviously, no wobbling, no issues, as we would expect. Okay, I'm going to try it again, and now I want to try to give it a little bit of a tap. So there is a little bit of a wobble. Okay, so it does start to wobble. So what I've noticed is if I ride it with no hands, there's no wobble. It's very stable. If I do give it that tap, it can start to do the wobble. And it doesn't recover. So you do have to keep your hands on the handlebars. You can remove your hands and it will be smooth. But if you remove your hands from the handlebars and somehow bump or hit the handlebars, you are going to have wobbling. So I would say that's a bummer. But at the same time, I can't imagine a time where you'd have both hands off the handlebars and you would intentionally hit the handlebars. Now, if you're off-roading, you may be getting bumps that would do that type of thing. And that would be a bummer if you had to take both hands off the handlebars and you hit some bumps and it started wobbling out of control. But you could just put your hands back on the handlebars. So I know that other bikes also have this issue. When you have the tire in the back like that on a rack behind the back tire, you tend to get this wobbling effect because of the weight, just like you would on a trailer. If you don't load a trailer properly and you put all the weight at the back over the rear axles, you get a wobbling that can actually make the entire truck and trailer crash because of the wobble. So I don't think it's a phenomenon or issue with the bike or the frame in particular. I think it's a design issue of having the battery over the rear rack. That would be my interpretation of the problem. Is it an issue as far as riding? Well, I'm gonna go take it off-roading real quick and we'll see if this headset and the steering stabilizer is able to keep the handlebars from doing a wobble on their own without my hands on them. And obviously if it's hitting big bumps, it's probably gonna start to do that little bit of wobble. The other solution that some people have mentioned online is to remove the rear battery, and then you don't get the wobble, just like the 2024 Wired Freedom without the dual batteries. But that would defeat the whole purpose of having this bike, other than the increased amperage on the controller, which is now also potted and is, as far as I could tell, UL certified, with more amperage and more wattage going to the motor. So it is still definitely an upgraded bike, but to not be able to have the battery in the back would sort of be defeating the purpose. You can kind of see there, if I do that, it sort of wobbles the whole bike if I hold it from the rear frame. So, you know, I'm not really a huge fan of a battery in the back. This is how electric bikes, a lot of them started with the battery in the back on a rack like this. And then many of them moved to a mid-mounted battery, which is a way better situation. So an option for Wired moving forward might be to just get rid of the battery in the back. In my opinion, get rid of the rack as well, because I'm not really a huge fan of racks or any weight in the back. And this goes for the rack itself. If you put a bunch of weight in the back on this rack, you're gonna have the same issue because you're putting the weight beyond this axis point of, or axle point of the wheel. So I'm not a fan of racks and putting a bunch of weight on the back. I'd rather wear a backpack and put the items inside of my backpack because it's on me and it's over the center line of the bike, which makes it far more balanced. It's already bad enough that you have the weight of the motor in the rear tire or in the wheel for off-roading purposes, but when you add this additional weight in the back like this, it definitely throws the geometry of the bike off. Kind of like putting a whole bunch of weight on the backside of your car or on the backside of a trailer, like I was saying. So going forward, I would think the best solution for this would be to put another battery, and I've seen other bikes with this right here. It would be really cool if Wired could put a battery that looks similar to this, but kind of maybe was inset, kind of like it is in this part of the tube, onto this part of the frame, so you have two batteries. It may be in the way a little bit, and some people might not like it for the step over height, but I think that's really a better solution to have that battery in the middle of the bike. It would be just as bad to have the weight up front as well. So again, I don't think it's a flaw in the design of the bike. I think it's more of just an overall design flaw to have weight that far back. It's just going to cause a wobble that's going to, you know, send the bike into a kind of a death wobble. Again, if you look up online how to load a trailer and how to improperly load a trailer, you'll see examples of what putting the weight too far back over the axles can do. I mean, it can even throw off an entire truck going down the road because the trailer starts to just swing like crazy. So we're gonna go off-road a little bit and we'll see if this is able to handle the bumps without any issues. I don't have the suspension set up yet, so I don't really want to push it in the bumps, but I do want to go off-road on the trails a little bit and kind of see if the issue is the same with this headset in here and see if the steering stabilizer keeps it smooth. Overall, I love the way that it rides just rolling down the road, and even with the hands off the handlebars, it's great. Now, if your hands are off the handlebars for too long and you're hitting bumps, so say you're off-road or something, you may have an issue. So let's go take this off-road real quick and we'll see how it does. All right, so I decided to take a path that's not really bumpy because I don't have the suspension set up yet and I don't want to push this locked out shock too much. But let's just try this. It's a little bit of off-road, a little bit of bumps, and see how it feels with no hands. So I have no hands. Seems to be doing well. I'm gonna kind of hold the bike with my legs here. So no hands. It seems to be doing okay. It's going over a few small bumps. It is a little bit harder to balance off-road, obviously, but it seems to be okay. So I'm assuming there's a little bump there. I'm assuming if I go off-road here and I hit the handlebars, obviously there'll be a death wobble. Not too bad actually, because I'm not going very fast. No hands. Yeah, it seems to do okay. I mean, it's not as bad as it was on road, but I think that's because the speed is a little bit lower. But it doesn't seem to be affecting it too much. So you can take your hands off. I don't know why you would ride with your hands off the handlebars. I never do that, other than, you know, if I have something in my eye and I need to very quickly, you know, check on it or whatever and clean it out. But I wouldn't recommend riding without your hands on the handlebars anyways. So yeah, overall, seems to be doing pretty well. I can imagine that, like I said, any bike that has this much additional weight over that rear wheel is going to have the same issue of wobbling. I've heard that some of the e-cells bikes are kind of having the same thing with the, I think it's a double step through one that's supposed to be out, and that a few people have had. They said that they've had the same issue with the wobbling. So I don't know. The only way, like I said, that I think the design could be corrected would be to put the weight of the battery either in the middle of the frame or somehow move this weight forward, but it's already pretty close to the seat, so I don't know that you can really move the rack forward very much. It's unfortunate that it does that, but like I said, I don't anticipate this being a problem. I'm not going to ride the bike without dual batteries. This one is going to be my range bike, so when I want to go down really far to Sacramento or other places, I'll be using the dual battery version. If I want to off-road and I want something that's super lightweight and balanced, I'm going to use my black 2024 Wired Freedom with a single battery. And in fact, I might even take the rack off of that one and just make it a super sleek bike with just the frame and wheels and tires and handlebars and seat. No rack in the back or anything. And then have this one be the full dresser with both batteries and the rack in the rear for long distance, you know, probably mostly on-road riding and a little bit of off-road riding. And then have my black one be for off-road and, you know, heavier use type stuff, where maybe I don't want to deal with any of the wobbling off-road or anything like that. So that's it for this video. Stay tuned. Like I said, I'm going to be setting up this air shock. I'm also going to be testing this thing for top speed, for how far it can go in a range test, for best case scenario, worst case scenario. And leave comments down below if you guys have any questions about any measurements on the bike or anything that you're not certain about. Let me know. And also, if you are interested in picking up one of these Wired Freedom bikes, the new versions do come with the Visco Hellbender headset, the steering stabilizer already installed, so you don't have to worry about that. It does have the dual batteries, the upgraded controller, and the upgraded motor with more power, all going to it. So if you're interested in picking one of those up, there's a link in the description box. Give that a click. It really supports the channel. I appreciate it, and we'll see you guys on the next one.